Let's take a closer look at the situation on the ground in Ukraine now, and I'm here with retired Air Vice Marshal Sean Bell. Sean, great to see you as always. We're going to start with a snapshot of all of Ukraine and just talk us through the key areas of focus in the days ahead.
Yeah, well, I think the initial, let's start with Mariupol, as your correspondent has been talking about. A desperate situation there. The shelling is continuing. Reports that some of the civilians are managing to get out, but so far the numbers are tens and twenties rather than the thousands that we believe are in there. So it's still looking pretty bleak for them. At Kharkiv, up to the north here, lots of examples of Ukrainian counterattacks up there. Why is that important? Because part of the resupply route for the Russian main effort in Donbass is to the south of there, and therefore anything that the Ukrainians can do to put at risk the Russian resupply routes will give the Russians something to think about. If we move further south, Kherson, as we've heard, we've seen the Russians are consolidating there. And finally, at Izium, which is where the fiercest fighting, the main focus is happening at the moment. But it does appear to have ground to a halt.
Let's dive in a bit into Izium then. So this area to the east of the country, and talk us through what sort of fighting is going on around here and the tactics involved.
Yeah, well, south of Izium, what seems to be occurring is the Russians are trying to push their troops further south. They both are using two main road routes from south of Izium for some reason. Why are they using the two main roads? If you remember up at Kyiv, we had that big 40-mile convoy that made them very vulnerable to attack. Well, it appears this time of year that the off-road terrain is not well suited for heavy armour or some of the other vehicles they have, so they've largely confined themselves to the roads. And of course, that makes them very vulnerable to counterattack from the Ukrainians. And by all accounts, they've stalled. What the Russians are desperately trying to do is reinforce from Belgorod down to the south. But of course, Kharkiv is causing some issues there. Why is this key, though, in the battle? It's key because any attacking force wants to maintain momentum. With momentum, you have initiative. As soon as you stall, you effectively hand the initiative to your opposition, and Ukraine will not be slow to mount counterattacks and potentially even isolate some of the leading elements of the Russian forces.
So that's the focus in the east. Let's also just quickly have a look at some of the key areas in the south. And why have you picked out this map to highlight what's going on here this week?
Well, a lot of our attention's been out to the east for the last week with the main focus of the battle in the Donbass region. But of course, fighting does continue across a broader swathe of Ukraine. If Russia still ultimately desires to take the whole of this coastland and take Odessa, then Kherson will be an important stepping stone for that. And we've also seen recently the bombing, I think overnight, the bombing of the airfield at Odessa. And recently we've seen satellite imagery of quite a number of troops and their equipment, Russian troops and equipment in Kherson. And of course also the announcement, as your colleagues have been reporting, of new administrative controls and potentially the ruble being used in Kherson. All this is somewhat disturbing, except for the fact, 2 points, one of which the more Russian troops are locked in Kherson, they're fixed and they're not able to support the main effort in the Donbass. And secondly, whilst they are fixed there, Ukrainians are taking full advantage to do counterattacks. And there are several reports of many of the suburbs of Kherson now being back into Ukrainian control. So the battle for Kherson isn't over. And certainly if Russia aspired to take Odessa, that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Sean Bell, as always, thanks so much.